ใน Hello? Hello?
Hi, Yolanda.
Oh, you made it.
Hi.
Outstanding. All right, let's call this meeting to order.
I do think we have some quorum.
It's not roll
Right,
call?
there's no roll call vote, correct. Well, let me pull up, I'm gonna pull up, well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
What's the, I didn't hear the question.
If it needs to be because there's only 5 of us.
What's the question, Sam?
Well, attendance without a video picture.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think the real question is, by my understanding, attendance counts with, right, electronic means, but you can only take a roll call vote if your face can be seen, but if we're taking a roll call at the beginning to establish the quorum, do we have to see a face, right? Does that count?
Yeah.
So it's not a vote, right? So
Yeah.
I'm inclined to say that it's
Okay.
acceptable, right?
Right,
To count
okay.
for a quorum. But you can proceed.
Well, she's on the phone. Yolanda, can you get your face on that screen?
No, she's actually.
I'm trying to see if my internet is gonna come back on. It was like booting up. Is it up? Is it back on?
Well, we can take a roll call vote anyway.
Roll call.
Is that the ruling then?
Yeah, go ahead and proceed and I'll.
I'll zoom in.
My mind.
All right,
Yeah.
she's up now, so.
Well, now she's disappeared.
She's gonna zoom in.
Oh, I
She's
see,
gonna
I see.
zoom in. So her internet came on.
Reboot.
And there's my notification that my internet is out as well, so.
Well, our electrical strip went out
All right.
and our computer went down, and to figure that it took a long time.
Yay.
Outstanding. All right.
Yay.
Thank you, Yolanda.
Roll call vote, please.
Contraption.
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Cleveland, Councilman Sachsenheimer,
Here.
Councilman Jackson, Councilman Evans,
Here.
Councilman Nelson, Councilman Hong,
Present.
Councilwoman Rosso,
Here.
Councilwoman Campbell.
Here.
Thank you. First item of business is a presentation regarding our 2022 audit. Is our auditor on Zoom here? Oh, hi.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, can you introduce yourself and tell us what you have for us this evening?
Sure. My name is Molly Malone. I'm a partner with Stop and Van Hoy. So we're going to be talking about 2022 audit results and just kind of do a brief overview of some of the updates and changes to some of the financial statements and processes and procedures that I'm going to recommend. I actually did talk and went over everything with Sam earlier, just to kind of get some clarity on everything. And then I'm going to be speaking with the council about it as well. So the overall audit opinion, he does have a copy of the draft of all of the financial statements. There's a couple tidying up items that that he's going to have to do on his part. And we have a few things on ours to finally get a final set of financial statements issued and have your audit final. But the audit opinion is going to be unmodified. That's the best opinion that you can have. So that means that we believe in our opinion that the financial statements are not going to, or they are reasonably stated with a reasonable level of accuracy. So it's not going to be completely, we can never really opine that they're completely 100% accurate, but we do believe that we are reasonably certain that they have a level of accuracy that's going to prevent material misstatement. So if you,
Is this the highest rating you can give?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so there's a couple different levels of audit opinions. Unmodified is the best. Just a kind of a little brief overview, because I know it's the first time the city's kind of participated in the audit process for a while. You're going to receive an unmodified opinion, and you guys are reporting on modified cash basis. So it's not going to be probably as strong in the teeth as if you were on generally accepted accounting principles, but I think for resuming the audit process, it's a good start. Other types of audit opinions that can be issued, the first next in line would be a qualified opinion, which is we believe they're reasonably stated except for, and it's usually because of one specific audit area, or the other two would be a disclaimer, meaning if the books and records were completely unauditable, we would not be able to issue an opinion at all. Or the worst kind is you can do an adverse opinion, meaning everything is really, really, really wrong. So you didn't have that level either. So you guys are going to be receiving an unmodified audit opinion, which is, again, the best that you can have.
Thank you.
I did want to speak on a couple things as far as getting some of the books cleaned up and going with accounting processes and procedures moving forward. So we're going to have a handful of audit findings. What this means is there are 3 levels, which one is the worst that you can have is a material weakness, meaning the processes and procedures are completely ineffective in the prevention of errors or fraud, misappropriation. It doesn't mean that fraud's there. It just means that the procedures need to be cleaned up a little bit. You could also have a significant deficiency, which is kind of like, we probably need to see some improvement. And, it could potentially lead to an error in financial reporting, or you could just have a regular deficiency. A lot of times those are more best practice recommendations. So there might be a handful of those. Those do not have to be put in writing. They can be communicated verbally. And I've spoken to Sam about a few things that we'd like to see some improvement on, but there are a couple that I do want to highlight that are going to meet the level of significant deficiencies. Now, that's pretty common. We have those still among other cities that have been in the audit process for a while, have, continued to have annual audits. So don't take them like as a super, ding or check mark. These are just things that we have to report that have plenty of opportunity for improvement. So the first is we would expect that there should be a form of documented internal controls, and it's an accounting policies and procedures manual in place. What this manual will do for the city is, number one, it's a continuity of employment. So if you have key roles in your financial operations that leave, or you have someone who leaves or someone new that comes in, it's a little bit of an instruction book so that they know exactly how financial transactions are processed within the city. Number two, that it outlines and it covers certain key parts of internal control, such as segregation of duties and assignment of responsibility. So it's going to identify key positions that are going to be responsible for certain financial transactions. And then it's also going to document the ways that the city goes about preventing errors, fraud, misappropriation, and whatnot. So it's, and if you are a participant in any federal funding program, such as ARPA or the SLFRF, I think is what their new acronym would be for you guys. But the ARPA, or the coronavirus, any of the coronavirus relief programs that you have received funding for, it's mandatory. You have to have an internal control document in place. So I do have a sample of that, which I'm going to provide to Sam, and you guys can tailor it as you need to see fit for your city. But what it does is it's going to give you a document in place. It's in writing. You can approve it at the city council level. You don't have to. It's more for management's use. But also did mention, since you have an external accountant, Angela, you're going to want to put her in as that, as long as you continue to have an external relationship with an accountant, unless you bring everything back in-house. You're going to want to have her role identified and what her responsibilities are as far as data entry or oversight or reconciliation of key accounts, preparation of audit work papers. There's going to be a few things that you're going to want to have outlined in that program and in those policies that basically allows her to have a clear guide too of what's expected in that role and how does it interrelate to the internal responsibilities for financial statements and reporting. So that's going to be the first finding. The second finding is going to tie into having documented internal control, but that would be also performing a fraud risk assessment. You guys assess risk in other ways because you purchased insurance. If you didn't assess any risk, you wouldn't have any insurance at all, and you would just be, so anything for general liability, property, you have mitigated risks for damages or liability for that area. but you do want to do internally a review on any areas that might be susceptible to fraud. Now, one of the biggest ways that you can prevent fraud that occurs within financial reporting or processing of any of your transactions is having a documented internal control policy. So by getting that manual in place, it's definitely a good step in the right direction. The next thing that you would want to do is make sure that the processes of all of your transactions don't leave opportunities on the board for any fraud, theft, or misappropriation. So again, not saying that's occurring at all, just saying, hey, you don't want to give the opportunity. You want to make sure that kind of everything gets nipped in the bud and that it's all documented and written down. And then you're assessing areas where maybe would be highly susceptible to fraud. A lot of key areas that we see are if you process anything that has to do with cash transactions, having a highly documented process on that to do prevention of anytime cash kind of floats around, it kind of raises my spidey sense a little bit. Another area that we kind of see where are bigger high risks for cities are if you have employee credit cards, if you have any personal use of city vehicles, such as if you have someone who takes the city vehicle home overnight, you want to look at those areas just to make sure that they're only being used for city purposes. And that can all be addressed, like I said, in your internal control manual. There's a whole host and areas of ways that you can document areas that are higher risk of fraud and what you're doing to prevent them. It's pretty common amongst all cities. I do have a sample of that document to give to Sam. So it can be discussed in a work session. It can be done at the management level. Again, it's not something that the council necessarily has to approve, but it's definitely something that we'd like to see in place in the future, just to show good stewardship. The rest of the others, we're going to have 3 other findings. They are not going to meet like a broad overreaching umbrella level like the first 2 did. I did want to noted to Sam that you did have 2 funds that fell over budget. And so we have to issue findings for those because we had expenditures in excess of the appropriation that was allowed. Those 2 funds are going to be the sewer lateral fund and the park and stormwater fund. Sewer lateral was not very much over. It was maybe about $3,000, but park and stormwater was over by about $20,000. And then next one would be just financial reporting and closing. Sam had mentioned, I think you guys have been working very closely with Angela to kind of get the books and records back in line, back clean, a little bit more, just cleaner, to be kind of frank, but we would have a finding issued out for reporting, financial reporting and closing. Part of that's going to be resolved by having documented internal control policies, because in that document, you're not only going to allow or to outline your day-to-day processes, but also the methods and processes that you're going to use to make sure your books are closed for the year. So key things from there would be reconciling your bank accounts timely, making sure that transactions are posted to the correct accounts, making sure that they're recorded on the month or the time that they're actually occurring. How do you account for certain items that require adjustment at year end? You guys typically do cash basis, meaning it's cash or it's revenue when it's received, it's expense when the check gets written. There are a couple items that are different. Prepaid expenses, prepaid insurance is one of those items that we do have an adjustment for annually, just to make sure that invoices that are paid to Slate are recorded in the proper period. So this being the first year that you guys have been audited by us and just been audited in a long time period, this is not an uncommon finding. I think it'll be a pretty easy resolution moving forward for fiscal 23. I don't anticipate this being a repeat. It's like I said, it's the first year. You're gonna now know, okay, these are the areas that we're gonna need work papers prepared for, items that are gonna need some cleanup. Like one of the big items that we did was we analyzed a lot of checks that were outstanding, and we ended up writing off a whole bunch of items that had been kind of hanging around on the bank reconciliation forever. couldn't really identify at that point if the vendor had been paid, had not been paid. So that is going to lead into finding number 5 with those outstanding checks. The city does have a responsibility under the unclaimed property laws to either make sure that if the vendor is still owed, that they do get paid and we reissue a check to them. Doesn't necessarily mean it goes to a vendor, could go to an individual. I know, especially those smaller amount checks, if you were to send me a check for $20, it'd probably ride around in my car for a year. I'm not gonna lie, like, you know, not everybody, depending on the amount, they might not necessarily look into, oh, hey, let me go to the bank right today and cash that. But they are still owed that money. So if we have outstanding checks that are kind of hanging out there for a pretty long time, we do want to make sure that we're following the state's unclaimed property laws and if we are unable to kind of track down who the funds belong to and they might have moved out of the area, you can't find them, or we have had instances where the payee died, you then have to go through the process of remitting those funds to unclaimed property at the treasurer's office, and then that becomes their responsibility to hunt down that person. But there was quite a few checks that were of a significant age on that listing that we would like to see, you know, turned over in the proper manner. So those are really the only 5 areas, like the 5 findings that we're going to have listed. Once the financial statements come out, they'll come out in a second draft. Sam's, like I said, is going to owe me a document giving the management discussion and analysis, which is kind of, it accompanies the financial statements, but it's prepared from management's perspective. So it gives a lot of key highlights and details and what the city's intentions are on a variety of different areas. He has the list of what is required to contain. But once all that kind of comes together and the findings are solid, you know, they're finalized and written up, you guys will either, as the council, you can do it, or you can put the trust in Sam to do it. But you have your opportunity to respond, give either your thoughts on the subject, or also to provide a corrective action plan, which would allow you to tell them, you know, to disclose to the public in the document, hey, yep, this is what we're doing to correct this. Here's how fast we think it's going to happen. And here's the ultimate, like, you have to provide the person that's responsible for the action. It's pretty routine amongst a lot of cities to have those corrective action plans. And then also, you have to look into, as we're issuing findings, there could potentially be, I don't think that there's anything right now that would not be cost effective to correct, but that is a possibility that you could run into an issue where I actually do have a city right now who they don't, they are not compliant with a certain accounting standard they're supposed to be compliant with, and it's not cost effective for them to be in compliance. So they just said, you know what, we're going to disclose, hey, we don't consider it to be, you know, it's too much of a burden to the taxpayers of the city for us to do this correction. You know, we'll evaluate in next year and see if it's, you know, if it's feasible, and if it's not, then they'll just take a finding again. For the most part, nothing on here is going to preclude you from using the audit report or seeking any new funding sources for grants. There's nothing on here that really even comes with a penalty. It's more or less just, hey, these are some things that for best practices, we definitely need to get corrected, either in the current fiscal year that you're in right now or in fiscal 24, whichever, you know, is feasible to happen first. So Sam has the draft, like I said, if you want to look over the numbers. If there's any questions on any of the numbers, feel free to reach out, or if you've had time to look over, I'm more than happy to answer questions on the meeting, whichever is easier, but I'll turn it over to you guys for questions or comments or anything.
I've got a question
Yes.
regarding the internal control document. Did you
Yes.
review the internal controls that we have in place, or did you not address that?
We do, but they're not written down.
Okay, so the internal controls can be in place and effective, but if we don't have a policy in place stating what those are, that's a deficiency then.
That's correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. You guys do, you know, that's not saying you don't have anything. It's just saying, hey, we really need to get them documented. Just one, for, like I said, continuity's sake, you want to have that document available to all employees that are participating in any parts of the financial transaction process. That way it's kind of an instruction book on how do you do things, number one. And number two, for federal reasons, if you're a recipient of any type of grant funding, it is required to be documented on that level for sure. So if you were to ever have a single audit, it'd be an automatic finding off the top because you didn't have a document in place. They're usually pretty easy to put in place. Like I said, we probably audit, I think, 7 other cities at this point. So we have plenty of samples, and most cities are willing to let you beg, borrow, or steal their copy. So I can give you, multiple samples. All you have to do is change your name and make sure, edit the sections as needed to fit your mold.
All right. Secondly, fraud risk assessment, is that something we do internally with our staff that's here?
Yep,
That
that's
doesn't happen
correct.
outside, okay.
Yep, that's done internally. You don't have to pay or anything extra or have anything done by any external vendors. There are cities who do. I will say there are cities that are much larger than you guys and have a much larger budget. I don't think that is a necessary thing that you would need to do. This can be completely done internal. All it really is it's just having a conversation about where you guys think and have identified areas where fraud could possibly occur. And then you're just discussing what do you do to prevent it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? All right, thank you for your time.
Yep. Like I said, Sam has my contact information. If after you've looked at any of the numbers, or if you have any questions about anything, please reach out to me. I'm available most all the time. And then we should wait on his document, my document. We have a few things still to exchange. Once the audit report is in final draft, I will have a document that Sam will need to sign as that gives just representations for management of the city. I actually prepare the whole thing for you. You just have to put it on city letterhead and sign it. And that will give permission for me to go ahead and release the final draft out. And so depending on how timely he is, we could be looking at maybe a week or two till everything's final and out. And then then we'll work a process or a timeline in place to make sure that fiscal 23's audit's completed by March. So that way we can turn something into the state on time.
All right, I appreciate it.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys' time. If you need anything else, please feel free to reach out.
Appreciate it, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Wow.
All right, next item on the agenda. Discussion of Council Bill 2316, which I can't seem to find.
Okay.
I don't think can I?
I'm sorry, yes, please.
Yeah. So, this is just, amendment to the pay plan, in addition to the outstanding council bill. I don't think the ordinance is actually in there. There's just, we didn't want to print off the whole thing. We want to add a position. Been talking with Dennis in Public Works and what he wants his budget to look like in the future, next year, and how he wants his department to operate. And we are looking at adding a Public Works supervisor or foreman. And so in your packet is basically adding that position. So first is the job description. Then there's the salary research, similar to what we did for all the other positions using the MML survey and some public data that the Post-Dispatch got through Sunshine Request, and then adding it to the step and grade system. And you'll see here, the recommendation is to place it at a G5, which would place it at the 24th percentile in the survey, which is similar to where our other positions are placed. So it kind of falls right in line, and it's also right in line with kind of what Dennis and I think that we can get someone in who can actually do the job, professionally and give us what we need. And in addition to that, I also want to point out one more change on the classification system. There was some question about rounding last time, so I went back. So there are some minor changes to this. I went into Excel, put in some rounding formulas, so it changed a couple dollars, but they should add up I guess more consistently is, and as it appears on the page, because there's no fractions of a cent or fractions of a dollar going into it, there still may be some, again, there still may be some, I guess, rounding irregularities when you transfer something from an annual pay to an hourly pay. But as far as the steps go up, how the steps go up, those are now rounded to the dollar in the case of the annual pay. So kind of fix some of those questions that Councilman Campbell had last time. So that's all I have. I mean, if there's any other discussion of the pay plan.
Well, I will first ask for a motion to add Public Works Supervisor to the pay plan at a grade of G5.
Well,
And if there's a motion in a
well-
second, we can have further discussion on it.
Well, I mean, this is just listed on the agenda as a discussion.
Okay, so we're okay.
At the next council meeting, the council bill will come modified for
Okay.
its second reading.
So you want some input on this?
Yeah.
Well, these are job duties, right?
Yeah, and I will, so to kind of dive into the job description of the supervisor here, it's very, very similar to the Public Works laborer job description. It just has one additional duty, and that's to supervise employees. So, I mean, this person is gonna be, working with the employees, but it basically will be the lead person and take a lot of responsibility. Some other minor duties within the, like, for instance, they changed some language about the safety to place more responsibility as them as the on-site supervisor for ensuring, that work is being done safely. But for the most part, it's substantially the same as the laborer position without just with supervisory responsibilities.
And Dennis and I were talking and kind of came up with the term player coach. He's going to be in the dirt with the rest of them. He just has additional responsibilities. In addition to being a laborer, he's going to have a supervisory capacity also. Yes?
But he will have the skills that we need to supervise. He will kind of help you, Dennis, in the machinery, in the driving, and the whatever needs to be filled in. Is that?
Yeah, I can still be available to get out there if needed to be. But this is the guy that's gonna be there every day and make sure the work is getting workflow. Because like, for example, I've been here almost 10 weeks now, and I have spent a large part of my time out with the guys. And it's for safety reasons, and it's also for production reasons. They need a push to make sure they do their job. And then like this week when it's been so hot, I was telling Sam and the mayor, I was really uncomfortable having them out there and me not with them this week. Because I was doing stuff in here, I just couldn't be in two places at one time. So this person would be there every day with them. The workflow would be set between the supervisor and I. We'd be discussing that, and he'd also be able to give me good feedback on their work and what they're doing when it comes time for evaluation.
And my understanding, this is going to bring in a laborer with a higher skill set
Right.
that you're not going to attract at $17 an hour.
Right.
Yeah, this person, one of the things I'm looking for is someone that can operate everything that we have. In case, like, right now, I'm learning how to work some of the other equipment, but if one guy is gone, that piece of equipment, I'm not yet comfortable that I would run that equipment. This person, my hope is, and my plan is they're gonna come in at that skill level already where they've done, that they've ran that boom truck already. I've been around the boom truck, but have I actually run it? No. But I'm learning how.
I also want to add, just from a budgeting perspective, we are taking one of the laborer's positions, which is currently unfilled right now. We're using a temp instead, and making it a supervisor position. And one of the reasons why that is significant is because, you know, the health and benefit package is the same no matter really. The pension will scale a little bit, but everything else is the same no matter how much you make. So it's you know, from 17 to 23, that's a $6 an hour increase. That's about $12,000 a year. So, you know, you're looking, depending on, you know, who we get and if they come in at step 1 or higher, you're looking at a $12,000 to $15,000 impact on the budget, which is.
So it's not just a mere laborer, it's a skilled laborer that, you know, I'm hearing a little bit of a different conversation. I'm fine with it, I mean.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Steve?
Does this person need a CDL?
No, none of our equipment requires a CDL.
Okay.
Yeah, once we got rid of those garbage trucks,
Yeah, that
we
was
don't
it.
need to.
See, I'm just checking, because I
Yeah.
didn't see it.
So what
listed.
is the weight limit as far as requiring a CDL?
I'll look it up, I don't know what.
Okay, so we don't need one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that new dump truck didn't put us in that category.
Okay.
That was one that we checked that early on to make
Yeah.
sure it was Rose the only one that has a CDL.
And if we really need it, I think Kiana has one.
I had one. It's not current anymore, it's not current, yes,
Oh,
but I
okay.
had a class B.
All right, does everybody sound good with that proposal?
Yeah.
I had another addition. Oh, go
One
ahead.
question.
Go ahead.
Just a little grammatical error. Supervised employees, column F. Just check the spelling there.
Yeah,
What you
I
said.
see that.
You see it?
Yeah, thank you.
Where's it at? Good catch.
It's supposed to say gather data, and it's missing an all.
Good catch.
Okay.
Oh,
I have another proposed change. If you want to turn to the summary of position, the step and grade chart that's in that same package you've got in your hand. And it gives you all the titles and then it says grade, G1, G4, G5.
okay, what page?
Second to last page.
There,
I think you're on this.
yeah, I think.
Okay, the last one, city administrator G11, and we've got a colonel G14. There's 3 grades between those two. And the city administrator being the CEO of the city, I just, and we're not talking about individuals now, we're talking about a pay plan from here forward, and it really, to me, looks lopsided. And then you go over to the column where they give the percentage values, and right now, at a percentage of 9%, meaning 80 or 91% of the city administrators are making more than our city administrator. We need to bring that 9% more, at least somewhere in line. Right now, we value this position of city administrator as the least important position in the city with that 9%. So I'm proposing we bring it up to G12, which
It's G11 right now.
it's G11 right now. If we bring it up 1 grade to G12, it'll make it the same as the major in the police department. And I think at a minimum, that's a reasonable change to make when you're looking, like I say, at the chart as a whole.
Where's the money gonna come from?
Well, we'll have to work on that between now and the next time we have this. I think there's gonna be room, because there's a lot of room on our insurance numbers that we still don't have. And if this is something the council's in agreement to do, then I'll scratch some numbers and Sam will scratch some numbers and see what we can do with it. But hopefully by that time, we're going to have numbers from our insurance company. When do you said September 1, they're gonna send us a bill?
Yeah, I'm not worried about MoPerm. In fact, they have everything they need. We just had some additional stuff that is taking a little bit longer, but we'll have it on September 1. It's the, still the work comp because we're moving to a new carrier. I'm regularly checking in with our broker and, you know, there's just a lot of hoops you have to go through. You have to get the paperwork and, you know, find a new carrier. So, that one will hopefully, you know, well, it's definitely gonna be before October 1st because that's when we'll need the new policy. But, you know, we'll get it in September. Whether we will have it in time to really adjust the budget before the September 19th meeting is still, I'm still not sure about that because even though we moved the meeting back, because we're going out to the conference, Kiana and I are going to the conference, we're still gonna try and get the packets out at the regular time. So really, I mean, that's 2 weeks from now. So it's probably a more realistic timeline that we'll get that final work comp number back and then we'll have a final approval at the September workshop.
So when's the September regular meeting? What date is that?
The
It's the
19th.
third Tuesday.
19th? And then we've got a workshop following that's our target to pass the final budget, is a vote at that workshop. It'll be presented at the regular meeting.
Yeah, and
before
now,
first, yeah.
and if I get the numbers, you know, if I get the numbers next week, then it's a different story. But that would be the 28th. So 2 days before the,
Okay.
well, 3 days before the new fiscal
What's
year.
the 28th?
That's the workshop.
Well, you won't be presented a budget that doesn't balance. Any input on this recommendation that I'm making?
The 19th is the third Tuesday, right?
Yes,
And then the 28th is the fourth Thursday?
that's correct.
I had forgotten we moved that September meeting. That actually gives us some breathing room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can come back with some numbers at the next meeting?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I'd like to hear your input on this
Well,
this
it would-
G12
Yeah, if
designation.
I may, working out the math, if we're doing that, it's a $6,600 thereabouts difference, divided by 52, divided by 40 hours a week, you're looking at $3.17 an hour
More hour.
raise if we're going off of 40-hour work weeks. So it's not absurd, it's not, I think that's doable, I think that's fairly reasonable, and I'm mostly for it, so.
Unless there's any other questions on the pay, I mean, some of what you guys are talking about bleeds into the next, which is the budget, so.
Okay. If there's no more comment on that, let's move on. Next item. Discussion of council, well, I gotta get my glasses on, excuse me. Discussion of Council Bill 2318 regarding the adoption of fiscal year 2024 budget. And again, Sam, I'll refer you for any changes that were made from our last conversation.
Sure. So, again, there's no ordinance in front of this, this is just the draft or for the workshop here. And I'll just move through, just to kind of highlight where we're going with this. There were some minor changes throughout. There was a lot of revisions in the police department because they got their numbers together. And we have some worksheets provided for each department to kind of give you a window into what makes up each line item. And some, again, adjustments throughout, which I'll kind of address as we work through the document. I'll try and go fast. I know we've got a lot, but this is, I mean, this is, you know, the most important thing we do every year with the budget. So if you think I'm going too fast, please tell me to slow down and feel free to ask questions. On the revenue side, nothing changed significantly at all. I think the only thing from the last draft budget is there was a slight increase in contract revenue. We're currently in the process of renewing a court contract with the City of Country Club Hills, which will bring that to the September meeting for your approval. And that contract was quite old, so there was an adjustment for inflation as well as just how the contract operates, which will lead to a slight increase in revenue to offset some of the costs for administering that contract. And then that's really the only major change on the revenue side. Most of what we're working on now is the expenditure side. So in administration, well, hold on, let me think about how I want to go through this here.
Yeah.
So
Page numbers.
you'll see here that there's pages through the budget. So the first 8 pages is the general fund budget through all the departments, and you'll see in a form you should be familiar with at this point. And then pages 9 through 14 are minor funds, and then pages 15 through to the end of the packet are the worksheets, which go by department. So, for instance, if you want to know what makes up a line item in the admin budget, if you go to page 15, you can see what makes up each line item. So, like on page 15, administration dues and subscriptions, you can see there's our dues to the Missouri Municipal League, membership dues for the city administrator for different professional associations, same for the city clerk, North County Incorporated, as well as some other dues for some minor some other associations that we're a part of. You'll see Zoom and Adobe on there, and this is part of one of the things that we've done with the budget is we're consolidating and changing things around. So the Zoom and Adobe got moved to a line item which we renamed software subscriptions, because they're both subscriptions, but they're really different. One's for software and one's for a professional association. So
15 on is not in the last draft we got.
no, all these worksheets is what's new, as well as the adjustments in the budget. So again, don't want to go through every line item. This is more for, if you want to look through it, if you have a question. But you see insurance right now, we have it set at $175 that would be our MOPERM, which is most of our liability insurance except for all of our
What
insurance
page is
except for work comp. This is on page
MOPERM.
17,
Got it.
10549. Last year the premium was $146,000, and so 175 is giving us some cushion. Obviously, depending on, I don't know what they're going to do on our loss history. We'll find out on September 1st if they increase our premiums. We also we're looking to add Sinclair Station is actually not on the schedule. That's one of the things that's delaying it, but we're adding Sinclair Station to this schedule because there's been some discussions about using that for storage, and also it's good to have a building that you plan on keeping on your insurance schedule. So we're working on getting that added. So that could add a significant cost. They also sent out a letter saying that they're going to raise the price for by square foot for buildings. So again, another cost associated with across the street. The longer we hang on to that.
So go back to Sinclair. What you're saying is because we're holding on to it, the amount of money insurance per a measurement is going to increase?
We don't have insurance on the building. Like, we have general liability insurance, but we don't have insurance on the building. So if it burned down tomorrow, we would be stuck with the building and we'd have to tear it down at our own cost or
So
rebuild it at our own
You're going
cost.
to add insurance, that's what you're saying?
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Sam, the 175, is that, hopefully, we're not gonna be experiencing lawsuits like we were in the past. but all the lawsuits that, because of the history of employee lawsuits, are deductible went up to $10,000. Does this 175 include anticipated deductibles, or is that, what do we do
So the
with that?
deductibles are budgeted, they're not budgeted in that line item. They're budgeted based on what they are. So if it is a deductible for a vehicle, like an auto crash, whatever our deductible is will go into the vehicle budget of the department that owns the vehicle.
Okay, so for
So they're
example,
paying their portion. If it's an employment liability thing, then we would charge it to legal fees.
okay, and but there is some anticipation of that in this budget, deductibles.
Yes, I will say, as far as when they raised the deductibles, they started billing us as costs were incurred, which is kind of strange. Because the other deductibles, they wait till the whole thing is set, is completed, and then they bill you the deductible. As far as outstanding $10,000 deductible claims that we have, and I don't want to go too much into the legal, but we don't have that much
Okay.
outstanding. That being said, if we get a new claim, which is bound to happen when you operate as a city, that would be a $10,000 deductible.
Thank you.
Question for Andy, based on your last statement, Sam. Let's speak in hypotheticals. Suppose there is a institution or a body that chooses to treat clients disparately. Andy, is that an issue for any regulator or any other governing body? I like speaking in hypotheticals.
Right. This particular, we don't know who you're talking about. And they are they're an insurance company. They're a public entity, but they're an insurance company as well. And so I think it would be difficult to prove disparate treatment.
Okay.
If that was even an actionable claim in this context.
Sure. Okay. Just thinking. Okay. Thank you.
And then just some instances of where we're recategorizing some stuff. If you go to 10581 computer software and support, I think that just used to be called computer maintenance. We moved a lot of our software subscriptions into here, and
What page?
oh, this is page 18, I'm sorry. Page 18, and we moved like the equipment, so the actual purchase, like if we need to buy a new computer monitor, we moved that out, whereas before it was all just kind of meshed together. The other big one that we moved, which it's not even on here because we just got rid of it, was contractual services. The only thing we had in admin and contractual services was our payroll fees. We moved those into accounting. So again, the budgets, especially when you look at it on this page, it will look different year to year because it is, but we're just trying to make it more reasonable because a lot of these, I think for a long time, we just did it the same way as it was done last year, going back 20 years, and it's just kind of, every once in a while you need to reset, so. As far as administration, the big items on here besides the insurance, that's a big change, is salaries. We did not have it ready for the pay plan tonight, but we are really wanting to get a part-time secretary, which would probably be a G1 or G2 position, so not like
Are
a.
you going back in this document? To administration?
Yeah, I would you could go to page 3. There's nothing really in the document referring to what I'm talking about right now. Besides line item 10501, you'll see that there's about a $25,000 or a $26,000 increase from last year for administrative salaries. And again, we're really looking at getting a part-time person, only working partial days or maybe only so many days a week that can help answer the phone, answer the windows. Right now, we've heard citizens' complaints about us not being responsive as phones as we would like to be, which I totally admit is something that we're struggling with right now. We're having employees from myself to Kiana to Rick that are getting pulled away from, enforcing the code or doing our own work to do simple things like occupancy permits at the window. We don't mind doing it, we're not complaining, but it is an efficiency error, and I know the council has asked to see more, code enforcement. Less time at the window for Rick would mean more time in the car. So, and it's really, if it's a part-time position, there's no healthcare or salaries. So you're really just looking at the cost of what you're paying them and what the payroll tax liability is. You're not looking at pension, you're not looking at health insurance. So it truly is, it's not that much money, and I think you would see benefits across the department.
Is that in here?
Yes, that is, and that was one of the something that we're stretching to get, because I really think it would help a lot in the office, and it would help a lot with how citizens interact with the city of Normandy, because right now we have an officer on light duty because she's expecting, but once she goes back to the roads, we're really going to be down in the front office again, and there's only so many people to answer the phones, and sometimes we're busy with other stuff. So that's something of note. And police department, again, are moving on to public safety, which is police on page 4. You have revisions throughout that the police department were able to get together. There are also still a couple pending items. I know Major Larson just recently submitted a grant for body-worn cameras, and so it's something we're looking into, but we'll see. We're still, the guy from Axon, which is the biggest body cam company, he was out here today giving us a quote, so we're still waiting on finalizing that, but that would be funded by a grant, at least for the first few years. But beyond that, major, one area that to increase significantly is fuel. As we get a more fully staffed department, we actually did not use that much fuel this year because we had less officers. But now that we're getting closer to full staffing, we're only a few away now. We do expect to use more fuel, as well as who knows what gas prices are going to do, so don't want to be too conservative on the estimate. And in addition to that, there aren't too many big changes, but I would refer you to the worksheet for the PD if you're curious on what makes that up. They're trying to save where they can to make up for some of the increased costs. Also, salaries is a large increase. That's not from adding positions. And with the budget amendment, we actually reduced the salary line items because we were so understaffed. If we are expecting to be fully staffed at the fully authorized 29 police officers, that rounding up to 1.7 million is what the wages would be. So it's a significant increase. Again, we were also offsetting some of that in previous years with ARPA money. I think we will have $20,000 in ARPA left for this year, and that will offset what small amount that is into police salaries as well for this. And so those are the major items of note for the police department. Feel free to stop me if you have questions.
Yeah, Sam, actually, if I may.
And I know Chief Sanders is on the call, if you'd like to ask her as well.
Okay, I'm pretty sure this is probably because of the way things have been bucketed or designated, but there are some big swings in differences. So for professional services, that's line item 10,613. We've been steadily dropping from 10,006 down to 8,700. Now we're down to 4,500. Do we know where and why it's been dropping?
Again, some of that has to do with the fact, okay, so yeah, it has to do with what we charge different lines and how we define, kind of what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, sure.
About 90% of the professional services line item is related to hiring, related to, sending them to the doctor to get assessed, to the psychologist to get access, and then occasionally, also in there is remediation. If there's a blood spill or someone defecates or urinates in a jail cell, we hire professionals to get those out to prevent blood-borne illnesses. But with less officers to hire, we're very, very hopeful about less turnover. We only have, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, I know you're on the call, but I think it's 4 or 5 positions that we're still short.
We have 4 unfilled positions, and we have 2 people in process right now, so we would be down to 2 unfilled positions. And yes, I am outside the building on a call with 15 juveniles trying to fight.
Okay, wow, look at that, 2 places open.
I'm still here, listening.
God bless you.
All right, but try not to bother you too much. Again, and so that's one of the reasons for the decrease. We actually peaked it up last year because we knew we'd do a lot of hiring. And this year, hopefully we'll do less hiring, so.
And then the other line item would be 10,659, public relations. We went from nothing the year before to 7,500, and now we're back down to 500.
I actually need to check with Chief on, that may be a typo.
Okay. Please.
Yes, the public relations budget was a typo. We went back down to public relations is the things that we do, like buying the stickers and promotional things that we bring to events for kiddos, and we budgeted it lower this year where it probably should be to give us enough of the supply to last for the budget year.
Yeah, so I'll double check with her, make sure that number's right.
Okay.
But yeah, it was 0 the year before, and we were, showing up to events, and other police departments would have, stuff for the
Swag.
kids, and we would have an old beat up
Yes,
police.
we're swag free.
Right. Thanks, Chief.
No worries.
Sam, under number 10,583 under building maintenance, I noticed that there is $7,500 for 7,700 Natural Bridge.
Yeah.
Is there something wrong with that, or is that just to kind of
Just
winterize
here.
it?
So this is 7,700. That's 7,733. So
My fault.
last year, it was a little bit more because hopefully we won't have that building for much longer. Hopefully we can offload it and get something cool in there. So yeah, it's going down a little bit because we're one less building, but there is quite a bit of deferred maintenance in this building. And we're looking into getting, some rebates for the lights, for LED and things of that nature, but.
And I will tell you, most of that, there's 3 items. We've had some plumbing issues that were repaired that required a professional. A lot of these lights are being replaced with LEDs. We might get reimbursements on those. And we put in a new air conditioner, which ate up that 10.5. I mean, it was, what, $6,800 just for the air conditioner.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Was
yeah,
that
it doesn't take long. What?
6,800,
Yeah.
is that here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Could have been worse.
Thank you.
Could have been a lot worse.
Any other questions on the police department budget? Okay, feel free to think of something, or if you're reviewing this and you have a question, feel free to reach out and Chief and I will get you an answer.
So from here forward, this is our budget unless you're notified of a change, unless you recommend a change. look it over close, and at our next meeting, we're gonna hopefully be there.
Yes, and courts and prosecuting attorney talked about that last time, I think, and so no real significant changes. We are, so right now, that's, for the salaries in courts, it's 2.5, so it is a full-time person, but right now, as the police department is getting more up to staff, we do expect some higher volume that will require more court clerks. So right now, Betty and Londa are doing a really good job at just 2, but I do expect at some point in the next fiscal year, they will need additional help, depending on what that looks like, depending if there's an additional court contract. That's
Is
the
that in
reason
the
for
budget
that,
here?
so.
For an additional staff person?
Part-time or full-time, so do you think?
So right now it's full-time, but
It's in the
it's
budget.
in this budget is 2 full-time persons and another full-time person to start a portion of the way through the year. So
Oh, I
basically, it will
see.
sit unfilled for a few months.
Yeah.
And then once we see the volume and we have a need, we'll fill it. And then Public Works, this one really didn't change that much from the last time, beyond the change we talked about earlier with the pay plan. Supervisor, I will say, on the hazardous tree, we have $15,000 budgeted that we submitted a community forestry cost share grant. So that $15,000 is necessary to do everything that we said that we were going to do in the grant. Now, it's not the end of the world if we have to cut it, but I think it's definitely a good investment right now because we can really get caught up on some of the liability and just risk, not necessarily to the city legally, but just to our residents with some trees that need cleaning or taken down. And then the Public Works Parks budget, this actually, I think, decreased significantly since the last time.
Where are you at?
Sorry, at the last workshop. Again, trying to balance the Parks and Stormwater budget, which funds the Parks budget in part. Again, this is part of the Public Works salaries get funded out of here, as well as different projects. But more the capital expenditures are part of the actual separate fund of Parks and Stormwater. So again, right now what's in front of you, I know Mayor Beckman said that we will have a balanced budget, and we will, but we're not adopting it tonight. The one right here is at negative 4,471. Again, we'll see what the insurance numbers do. And there's always some places that we can save if we need to. So,
Why don't we have supplemental insurance for the parks?
yeah, so in previous years, we actually, again, so it's the Public Works Department, and then we pay a portion out of it, out of the Parks Fund. And that's because Public Works takes care of our parks. In previous years, we did a portion of health insurance, but because we're actually doing stuff in our parks and investing in some capital expenditures, we're just going to do, the way this is proposed is that we just do salaries, because if we do health insurance as well, then we're not going to have enough money to do some of the capital things that we want to with the half-cent Parks and Stormwater tax.
So what department is that covering?
It's so you would see an increase in Public Works. It's getting paid out of Public Works. All right, I feel like I'm going on a long time here. I just want to do a couple more things on the minor funds, and then I think that about covers it for all the updates. We'll talk about the parking lot bid tonight for the ceiling and striping. But in capital outlay, you do have some capital outlay for administration, and that's planned to go towards the city hall, specifically working on the parking lot, as well as a little bit other money in case something happens, be like another air conditioner goes out. I know we have some in the building maintenance budget, but in addition to that, I do see a mistake on here. So that 60,000 should be one more down in police. So
Okay,
that's
what page are you on?
This is on page 9, capital improvement
Okay.
fund.
Got
So
it.
that 60,000 should be in police, and that would be for purchasing, basically rotating out vehicles in our fleet, and that's offset by the sale of capital assets in part. But again, keeping our fleet up to date helps on our vehicle maintenance budget in the police department. And then you'll see on the lower half in other financing sources and uses, there is principal payments and interest expense that comes out to, I think, be about $17,000, and that is for 3 months payments on 7733 Natural Bridge, which means we would need to get rid of the building by January, or else we would need to come up with a budget amendment to continue the payments. So hopefully that gives us enough time to decide what we want to do with that building. But at this point, even if we said we want to sell it to the first person who walks in the door, I don't think we would get it off the books before the budget even started. So, and that's the, again, and there's a little bit of cushion in the capital improvement funds in case something comes up, or we just set it aside to save for future capital expenditures. Parks and stormwater, which is the next page on page 10, you'll see that the big change here is the grant, which the council voted on a resolution at the last meeting to submit for Holzell Park, the tennis courts, the new parking lot, the bathrooms, and maintenance to the existing parking lot. You'll see that on line item 4420, there's a budgeted income of grant revenue for $350,000, and then on the expenditure side, you see there's $369,000. That difference is our match. In addition to that, we've got our general $10,000 park expenses, which kind of allows us to do fun things like the jazz night and things that are coming up, and the movie nights that we've done in the past, as well as we bought equipment for the concession stand before with it. And you'll also see $20,000 for capital equipment, and that would be to purchase some new mowers, which would definitely help in the maintenance budget in the Parks Department. So,
Is that enough?
yeah, we've got some state bids where you can get a decent zero turn for, we should be able to get 2 decent zero turns for that amount. And those are the state lets out bids and they get this really good price because they buy thousands of them, and then we can piggyback off of that. And then there's a transfer out to general fund, and that pays for the parks budget that we saw in the general fund earlier. So those numbers tie. And again, there's a budgeted decline in fund balance, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. You do want to make sure that you're spending your restricted funds, and in this case, we're spending it on capital items like the match for the grant and the equipment. Economic Development Fund, I don't have too much to point out here. Certainly nothing that's, I don't think, changed since the last meeting. But we are looking, the state statute does allow you to pay for some administrative costs and some legal and accounting fees, so that's in there as well as keeping up the great streets, make sure the fountain is running, and helping with some of the utilities that it costs to operate these decorative light poles and the fountain.
What's capital outlay?
Capital outlay is a term just for any type of capital expenditure. So if we needed to buy a new motor for the fountain, which I think that may happen, that may need to happen in this next year. From my conversations with Dennis, then we could charge it to capital outlay because it's a capital expenditure. And street improvement, again, we're planning to do significant amount of street projects in the next year. But nothing really changed from the last workshop, so I won't go on that too much. Sewer lateral, this did change from the last workshop. Obviously, the consolidation passed, and we'll be redoing our sewer lateral program with our fee increase. But it's kind of weird to think about, but that won't, the revenues from the increase won't happen until 2025. Because this year, we're still the city of Normandy, our fee is still $28. Next year in 2024, which will be in fiscal year 2025, we'll see the increased fees. But I do have increased expenditures because once we adopt the ordinance and we'll say we'll cover 100%, we have to cover 100%,
So I've got a question. Restricted funds, obviously economic development fund, and that fund balance is growing and growing. Why are we not spending that down, or at least budget for it? Whether we don't spend it or whether we use it or don't use it, budget to use it, and then if we need to use it, we use it.
So that one is, I would say, the most restricted fund, if that makes sense, of the sales tax.
Yeah.
It's authorized by the state statute, and it tells you exactly what you can and can't use it for. And that's part of, we've done a lot of work to get a lot of our boards and commissions staffed and going. Economic development is the one that we need to work on, kind of coming up with goals and a vision for what we want to do with it. But
So you let the Economic Development Commission create their own budget for how this money is spent?
yes, but more specifically what I was doing. So you're really supposed to use the economic development money to do like capital purchases. And it's a little weird in a city that's completely built out like Normandy, but other cities in more rural areas may use it to build a new road or something bigger, or maybe purchase a parcel to redevelop it. And so I think it would probably be prudent to have the economic development board come up with a plan for economic development, maybe identify some projects that we can use that money to help leverage economic development throughout the city of Normandy. So
Thank you.
and that's really everything of note. Again, I encourage you to go through the worksheets. They're there for transparency. They don't make it into the final budgeting document, but they are here now, and we keep them on a spreadsheet. So it's kind of to give the council a view in, because sometimes it's hard to just judge off of line items what you're looking at.
Any more questions? All right, moving on to the next item. Number 3, discussion of Council Bill 23-19 regarding solid waste and limb disposal services. I think at our last meeting, the majority of the council was in agreement that we're going to put limb disposal services, make that the responsibility of the homeowner through our carrier for solid waste. That's part of the contract anyway. We didn't really discuss the leaf pickup though, and what I would say, just a starting point, is also make that the responsibility of the homeowners, knowing that we're gonna go out a couple times a year, announce a leaf pickup, and make the leaf pickup without the obligation of a leaf pickup. We know we're gonna do it anyway, but if we're amending our ordinances, we're putting that responsibility on the homeowners. That doesn't preclude us from putting out in our newsletter, we're gonna be out on, November 7th with the leaf back, rake your leaves to the front yard.
So the responsibility would be they need to bag it and at the curb,
Right.
or when, the leaf bag comes, to have at least raked.
Right, and we can run it a couple times a year and say, hey, these are the dates. But if somebody misses the date, they're not calling City Hall and saying, hey, I didn't have it out, can you bring the leaf back by, which is a big chore.
Yeah, I know.
And it takes time, so I would think that would be a reasonable way to approach it.
So how would you write that out then? I mean,
Well, just write it so it's the responsibility of the homeowner to dispose of yard waste.
well,
So
there's two, there's well, how would you know? You have to separate.
Yeah, we can still run a wood chipper too, like if there's a storm, we can say,
Right.
hey, there's a storm, we're out there, but it's not a routine, thing, or somebody picks up and say, hey, I know I got a pile of limbs in my front yard, well, okay,
I would
unless
string
there's
them
some
up
special,
on Monday.
go ahead, you had something, Sam? You
Yeah,
look like you
well-
had something.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea to address the leaf back services in ordinance. Currently, I don't think we have any ordinances on the leaf back, it's just kind of a service that we do. Of course, if someone just has their leaves out and it's, I know we had some of that last year because we had issues providing the service. If someone just has the leaves out and it's on them, we could probably do that through a nuisance ordinance. They're not keeping their property up. So I don't know, and I don't know if Andy has thoughts on this, but we may not need to write it in to.
Why would that be any different with limb disposal? That was part of what we were writing into that ordinance. How would it be different?
Well,
So you're saying, you're suggesting that just not raking your leaves and having your lawn covered in leaves could be a nuisance?
yeah, I don't know.
I'm not certain about that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a little skeptical of that one, so there may need to be, yeah.
Dennis,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Well, I do,
Dennis, I mean, with the leaf.
I like the idea of only having certain days there to run that thing, it's a monster. And, I see no issue with telling the residents, give them plenty of time to know, on October 31st, we're gonna be running the leaf back for 12 hours or whatever it is. I like that idea.
and I just want to add, so the reason why we have the limb ordinance isn't so much to put the responsibility on the owner to put the limbs out, it's to regulate how they're put out for pickups. Like the old one that we're looking at changing said, we're not going to pick them up if they're over this diameter or if they're this long, right? So,
Well, could the same be done with leaves? Or if
We
you're gonna
could,
rake
it-
your-
it may-
if you're gonna
it may be
rake your
good.
leaves in front of the yard.
yeah, saying, we won't go past this point in your yard. I mean, that may be worth it.
Well, that, or they need to have them at the curb on the designated pickup days. And put that in the ordinance. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying just the responsibility for leaf pickup is on the homeowner.
Always.
And then at that point, we can make an announcement, like we will every year, we're gonna be out this day and this day. We wouldn't be obligated to, so what if that thing blows up tomorrow? What are we gonna do? It's a $50,000 machine.
So if it's on the landowner, if it's on the homeowner, then if there's no equipment to pick it up, they're gonna have to bag it, put it out on Monday
Right.
for waste management to get.
Yes, and as long as we have equipment and it's in good working order, we'll announce we're gonna go out and do it, and we're gonna go out and do it. Steve?
I could tell you for a fact, this Monday, I sat on my front porch and I watched Midwest Waste take the brown bags and not the limbs. I watched them. So what I'm saying is, if you're going to throw it all aside and put it on the homeowners, I get it. But people aren't putting it on Midwest Waste either. They need to be able to do their job
But were the
too.
limbs strung
Yes.
together?
Yes.
So what's the?
Hang on, hang
So
on,
my-
Steve's got the floor.
So my point is this, before you want to draft an ordinance and punish a homeowner about leaves. I mean, for the nuisance ordinance, it needs to be extremely, we have almost 400 houses, and we have elderly folks. And I agree with helping. They should be able to do it themselves or pay to have it done. But to punish them before they can possibly get someone to do it through an ordinance, that's going a little too far for 400 houses.
I'm out of curiosity, can you tell me where that was at? Because we ran the chipper today, and I drove the entire town, and I had 23 pickups today is all I had.
Right.
Where were these bundles?
It was on-
I found no bundles.
She pulled them back so that it wouldn't create an
Oh,
issue.
okay. I wish you would've left them out, because they would've got picked up today.
Well, but like I said, but they just passed this, that they weren't gonna pick it up on a regular basis. So she was doing it according to Midwest Waste. So she was trying to go by the rules that
Well, the rules
was,
haven't changed yet.
yeah, but they talk, once it's through Ward 1 already.
Well, Steve, so if they didn't pick it up, she needed to call and do a complaint, and then they come back and they get it. So it's a ticketed complaint then. So, I mean, that's the way I see residents on my street do it, is Waste Management comes back and.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but there was a truck sitting there right there where all the person had to do was
Well, I
pick it
know.
up
Well, then-
and take
Well,
2 steps.
and we can address Waste Management's deficiencies. That doesn't have to be part of it.
I feel like,
They're not doing it. Yolanda, are you talking to us?
Oh, no, I.
So what's the requirement as far as picking up trees?
Hello?
I see
Getting muted? Am I being muted or
Hang on a minute. Yolanda, what, you got an issue?
am I being muted? I was talking in relation to what Steve was saying. Am I being muted or I'm not muting myself?
Sorry about that.
There was background noise, so we thought you were talking to someone else.
No. I feel like the same thing as Steve, like we need to, before we attack. Hello?
No, we hear you.
We hear you.
Okay, before we attack like the homeowners, we need to hold Waste Management accountable because we haven't had a meeting with them about how their services aren't up to par all the time. And I feel like we're putting a lot of money into public works to have people that are going to be efficient, and we need to let them do their job. If we want to hire somebody who's going to be on the ground, and we have dentists, and we're hiring more efficient and more educated people in that area, then we need to tackle it from that standpoint first, instead of just, we're not going to do it anymore, especially since we have these equipment.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting we don't do it anymore. I'm just suggesting
Well, I also.
be part of the ordinance that,
The way we communicate with we don't really get the word out that well either. You know, when it is like time for us to do it, like people never really seem to know.
okay, hang on a minute. Do we need to address leaf pickup at all in this ordinance? That's the question.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I mean, they are two separate issues. There's limb
Yeah.
and then leaf pickup. And I don't know, Amy has a different opinion. I don't know that we need to.
All right.
Because it's not it is something that we put announcements out for.
Right.
And then we have, and I just want to respond to Councilman Count, I mean, we have had meetings with Waste Management about their services and expressed our frustrations. And again, when you design the ordinance, you also want to think about future service providers as well, so.
Okay. Well, I'm good with that, leaving the status quo for leaf pickup. Leave it as it is. And just don't address it in the ordinance. And if they miss, I mean, we'll announce 2 pickups, and if people miss the 2 pickups, they're gonna have to rake and bag their leaves.
They're put in bags and keep it.
Right, and they still got an option. Okay,
So can I play my new guy card?
Yeah,
What is the normal process for leaf pickup? Just a
there's
couple
been
times
no
a year?
process. That's
Okay.
been a problem.
Well, there was
Very-
a long time ago.
Yeah,
Is they'd start at Monday and then go through the whole town and do the leaf pickup. So on the weekend, I mean, I'm remembering getting them to the curb, and then they would come by the next, the end of the week, and, but that was years ago.
and the bottom line, there has to be some communication as to when that service is gonna be provided, this day and this day, and also some communication that, hey, get your leaves out on this day or this day, or you're gonna be bagging them, and then Waste Management's gonna be picking them.
Yeah, just
Because they do have another option now.
hooking and unhooking that leaf blower, day after day, because at night you gotta put it away, you can't leave it hooked up. And it's a monster.
So in
Yeah.
Public Works, are there, they put out once or twice, a year or two ago, a leaf pickup on this date, and they put it at, different, neighborhoods. And so can you find those? It was, I think, with a dry eraser, and you could put the date, and they were from Public Works. Public Works put them out. Are they in the building?
I think they're back in the boiler room.
Just say what I'd like to see is just, maybe some door hangers to say this fall we're going to be doing leaf pickup on.
Yeah, you can have it organized.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. Let's stay focused on this ordinance, and if we're in agreement that we're not gonna address leaf pickup in this ordinance, are there any suggested changes after reading what's in front of you to make to the existing ordinance?
Okay,
And we'll have our first reading in our regular meeting in September on this.
this is bill number 2319.
2319, yes. You had something for us, Andy?
Well, so, between now and the next council meeting, I have been going over this ordinance, and I do plan to make some changes to it. I think there's just a lot of aspects of this that there are 5 or 6 different sections that all deal with container storage. Well, those could all be consolidated into a single section, right? So it'd be easier for someone to reference when they're trying to figure out, okay, what are the rules governing storage of my trash containers? So I think there's just a lot of amendments that can be made to kind of clean this up a little bit. And just some other minor things that, so I don't think there's going to be any major changes in the content, but the organization is going to be changed by the time this comes back to the council for a second reading.
Thank you. We haven't had our first reading on this.
Yes, we do.
Did we?
That's all we have.
I did not remember that taking place. All right.
And point out to me, didn't you update it with like specific, the limb dimensions and, or no, the number of personal cans versus 12?
That's one of the changes that we talked about at the last meeting, and something that Andy will also change when he's going back and reorganizing. I think we had came to the consensus that we're going to just refer to what the contract says.
Yeah, that's right.
Incorporate that by
That's
reference.
right.
Yeah, so that is
I
one section that
remember
that is a section that will be drastically changed, and it's just going to give the city discretion to set that by the terms of the contract with the service provider, rather than dictating the terms of the contract by ordinance.
I remember that.
All right, any questions on this? Are we ready to move on? Next item of business, discussion of Council Bill 2320 regarding the personnel policy manual update. This was, I don't think there was anything that we needed. Go ahead.
And so we're just trying to get in the practice of every bill that's between first and second reading, getting it on the workshop in case there are discussions. I'm not expecting much discussion on this tonight, but if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, I thought everybody was in agreement on this when it was presented. I didn't hear objection or concerns or questions. It cleaned up the issue with the police officers versus administrative officers, at any rate. Was everybody good with this? Yeah, with the holiday pay and how it's structured and everything.
And there's a new position being added too, right? Public Works.
Well, it's not,
Yeah, that's not part of this bill. This was
Well,
just
this is the holiday.
how to deal with the holiday pay for,
Oh, okay.
for police officers. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, discussion of Council Bill 2321 regarding elected official attendance at city council meetings.
I thought we voted on it.
Yeah.
We did, we had a
discussed.
first reading and it passed. There was a suggestion made, not a suggestion made, an idea brought up. We're doing this to keep, to assure people come to meetings and they can't just quit and still get paid. Okay, that's the purpose for this, and I think it largely accomplishes that. One concern that was raised was, what is attendance? You have to be at 10 out of the 12 meetings, or you start losing your pay. What if someone were to Zoom in, roll call, and 5 minutes later they're gone? Have they attended the meeting? So do we need to just be very specific in this ordinance? What constitutes attendance?
Yeah.
You know-
You have to be at the meeting for it to be considered.
Exactly.
attendance.
Exactly. You missed that. We're talking, I'm sorry. Yeah. To assure that people can't just quit and collect their pay, that's why we initiate, that's why this was written. What if somebody decides they don't want to do any work anymore? They Zoom in, there's roll call, and 10 minutes later, all of a sudden, they're gone. Have they attended the meeting? And if that's done routinely, it's just a big workaround, this ordinance that we're going to pass. Does that need to be addressed as far as, for the purpose of the ordinance, a description of what attendance means? The definition of attendance built into the ordinance. Any,
Probably so.
I think that's something.
Does that also mean if a person doesn't go to the closed meeting, if we have a full meeting and it's like,
I thought we had decided that did not include,
Those are two different.
oh, you mean closed meeting at the end of a regular meeting?
Right.
That,
yeah,
You need to be there.
I think if it's scheduled on the night of a regular meeting, they should be there. Because you know when the regular meetings are, you just dedicate that evening to a meeting. You have to be here. But I don't know
so
if
that
that's.
would mean that a
addressed.
person would have to stay be there at 6:30 and stay all the way until the end of the closed session meeting, right?
Yeah, roll call to adjournment, yeah.
Okay.
Would everybody be good with that, adding that language to the ordinance?
Yeah.
Attendance means you're there from roll call to adjournment? Okay.
all right, what if you're late? What if you leave, 10 minutes early?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't be late.
And
I mean, it's not the worst penalty in the world, right? It's,
no, it's not, and the only other thing is, when you get beyond that, it's gonna get kind of onerous to
Right.
enforce. We'll be
Enforceability.
checking the recordings and the timing.
right.
Yeah, there's too many other things.
I mean, if you want to keep it simple, be here on time, and you'll be here from roll call till adjournment, and then you've satisfied your attendance. And you get to miss 2 without any penalty already.
Well, the adjournment.
So now, is that-
session.
Adjournment of any regular meeting and closed session meeting, I would suggest. Yeah,
So
go ahead.
when you're talking closed session, do you have a time limit on closed
Or
sessions?
do you have a time limit on meetings?
Yeah.
What have you? I mean, 'cause we can be up here sometime.
To 10, 11
10,
o'clock.
at night. People just go on and on and on.
Mhm.
Well, we either, if it becomes too burdensome, we can make a motion to adjourn. I mean, that's not a debatable motion. Make a motion to adjourn, and if everybody wants to adjourn the meeting, we adjourn the meeting. It's like, all right, we've been here 4 hours, I make a motion to adjourn.
Exactly, because.
And we're out of here,
Wasn't
right?
that the reason that we started the workshops?
Yeah.
It's just, and we're still having long meetings.
I think we're getting much better.
We're
Yeah.
better,
Yeah.
but sometimes we still extend a little bit more
Well,
on the,
and I will tell you, and I've said this before, that's on me to keep people from rambling on. That's my job.
Yeah, we can.
okay, so then how, Did Andy ever answer the question about if being on Zoom constitutes being present?
Yes, he did.
Yes, being on Zoom constitutes being present. The only thing that someone who, basically, if you want to participate in a roll call vote, we have to see your face. So, roll call votes can't be taken by telephone.
Right.
But by Zoom, that's fine.
So if you're attending the meeting and you can answer the roll call and you're here till adjournment, you're here. Okay. Anybody have issues with proposed change?
No.
All right. Moving on. Glasses, can't find my glasses without my glasses. New business. Council Bill 23-22, first reading and ordinance of the
When you
city.
say 22,
I'm sorry. Council Bill 23-22.
No business D.
Let me find it.
It's just not marked.
it's not on the agenda.
Yeah, it's under new
It's,
business.
yeah, it's just not marked 23-22.
It's just
You
not
don't have
marked.
it updated.
That one, thank
Yes.
you.
It's just not marked.
I'll read it and then you'll know which one it is. Council Bill 23-22, an ordinance of the city of Normandy, Missouri, amending and readopting the code book governing procedures to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interests for certain officials. Is there a motion to accept the first reading of Bill 23-22?
I'll make a motion, please.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, this is another requirement by the state of Missouri that we readopt this, and we were notified rather late about it. We adopt, well, it speaks for itself. If you have conflicts of interest and regarding voting with conflicts of interests. And this is part of our,
Mayor, if I may.
yes, please.
So you alluded to that the city received notice of this issue late. So this was a last minute addition to the agenda and it fell within the 24-hour time period notice required by statute. So the minutes do need to state the nature of the good cause justifying the departure from the normal notice requirements, and that good cause is that, and someone can feel free to restate this, or it can be in the minutes just for me stating it. The city did not receive notice from the Missouri Ethics Commission that this ordinance needed to be adopted by September 15th until this morning. So, and of course, because the regular September meeting was rescheduled until September 19th, the council would not be able to address this until after the deadline. And if the city misses the deadline in failing to readopt and reaffirm its conflict of interest and ethics policy, then each one of you would have to file your own individual financial disclosure statement with the Missouri Ethics Commission. So there's good reason to adopt this. Again, the Missouri Ethics Commission was quite dilatory in reminding the city of this deadline, and so there you have it.
And I think I'll let the minutes of the meeting just manage the reason that we're doing this then.
Thank you.
Okay, we're done.
Okay, now, again, because I'm asking for a second reading at the same meeting, it will require a unanimous vote. Is there a motion for the second reading of Bill 23-22?
Motion.
I have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Sexton?
Yes.
Councilman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilman Evans?
Yes.
Councilman Vaughn?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosso?
Yes,
Councilwoman Campbell?
Yes.
Did you vote no, Kevin?
I see it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I misunderstood. That's a unanimous vote.
You used to be voting no?
expecting a no vote?
No, that's what I thought.
Hold your breath.
All right, second reading of
Ears and birds.
Bill 23-22, an ordinance in the city of Normandy, Missouri, amending and readopting the code book governing procedures to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interests for certain officials. Is there a motion to adopt Bill 23-22?
Motion?
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Saxonhammer,
Yes.
Councilman Jackson,
Yes.
Councilman Evans,
Yes.
Councilman Hong,
Yes.
Councilman Rosso,
Yes.
Councilman Campbell.
Yes.
Councilman
Motion carries. Bill 2322 is adopted as ordinance number
788.
788. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Don't that same.
Yeah, I don't want to go through my paperwork again.
Resolution 23-27, a resolution of the city of Normandy, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to accept a bid from Tops Contracting for maintenance of the city hall parking lot. We'll have discussion after the motion. Is there a motion to adopt resolution 23-27?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can you give us some history on this, Dennis? About the bids that you received?
Yep, I went out and requested proposals from about a dozen different contractors, and I received back, I think it was 9. I got bids for full paving with 2-inch pave, completely redoing the parking lots. And when I found out that was a lot more expensive than I thought it was gonna be, I went ahead and got bids for fixing the bad spots and filling the cracks, and then resealing the entire parking lot. And I wound up with 3 really, they were competitive bids for the paving and competitive bids for the paving and for the sealing. The paving bids came in 54 to 59,000 was the span, and then for the fixing of the bad spots, sealing of the cracks, and sealing of the entire parking lot, they came in from 9.4 to right around $11,000. And after checking on the history of the people that did the bidding, I proposed to the mayor and to our administrator that we accept Tops. They have the best history. Their guarantee was the best, and when they did the contract to us, the scope was everything that we asked for, and it was outlined. So that's where I made the recommendation. So Tops was, in my opinion, the best bid, and will get the best work for them.
Well, and I'd also like to add to that, in reading through that bid, I would like to, if this is the price if they come out and not have to make a second trip. I would rather they make a second trip. I'd like to do half the parking lot, and then the police will have a place to park all their cars, and we'll be able to work, and then do the other half of the parking lot. Our other choice is to let them do it over a weekend, but we already got a $900 discount for not doing it on a weekend, for doing it on a weekday. But what I'd like to do is put an extra $1,000 in this resolution, and whether we use the extra 1,000 or don't use the extra 1,000 or try to negotiate with them, I'll at least be able to move forward with this job and split it into two jobs.
And I just want to add, as far as appropriations and funding, right now, we've talked to the contractor, they'd be willing to start towards the end of September, and the bill wouldn't come due until October 1st. So the second section of the resolution directs the city administrator to work into the budget this, and that is in the capital improvement budget.
So first, if it's the pleasure of the council, I'd like a motion to amend Resolution 23-2027 to include an amount not to exceed $11,274. Without a motion,
With that-
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, I'll second.
And what's that amount, Warren?
$11,274. It's $1,000 higher than what is stated in there, because I may ask him to do this job in 2 trips.
So, okay.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution 23-27 as amended?
Motion? What are you asking for?
A motion to adopt this resolution as amended, which would be in an amount not to exceed $11,274.
Second.
Motion?
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 23-28, a resolution of the City of Normandy, Missouri, appointing members to the Transition Committee for the consolidation of the City of Normandy and the Village of Glen Echo Park. And the resolution appoints myself and Sam to this Transition Committee, which is required by the Boundary Commission to put this city, and it's to iron out the wrinkles between now and February 8th. And Andy's gonna be a part of that also, obviously. But there's
And
a,
Glen Echo Park, don't they?
they appoint 2 also, and they, does anybody know, Sam, did they make their 2 appointments the other night?
It's Vicky Valle and Tony Dukes.
Okay, they've made their 2 appointments.
Wait, okay, hold on, I'm being told.
No,
The city attorney, or the village attorney told me today that it was, well, I don't know if he was there, but he told me, no, he texted Vicky while I was on the phone. It's Vicky and Tony.
Okay,
Well, the
But he
city
could-
clerk for the village, what,
Village clerk.
yeah, village clerk.
Okay, so what was recorded was Vicky and Helena Craig.
okay,
And should Helena Craig feel that she cannot fill that role, Tony Dukes will step in.
Okay.
In my understanding, she wasn't there that night, so.
okay, I
2
got
people
it.
will show up from the village.
So 2 people will be on that committee from the village and 2 from us, and it's for the purpose of making some necessary ordinance changes to accommodate this. It's all the wrinkles involved in pulling the 2 cities together. So, is there a motion to adopt Resolution 23-28?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Good luck. Thank you.
Have fun.
Yeah, I know. Like I need another meeting, right? All right, item number 4 under new business. A resolution of the City of Normandy, Missouri authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the Normandy Schools Collaborative to provide a school resource officer for the 23-24 school year. This is a renewal. We have a contract now. Chief Sanders, are you still with us? She sounded like she got busy. I will tell you that it's a renewal of the same contract, except we've raised the fee about $4,000. Sam, do you want to add anything to that?
I mean, there are, in substance, it's the same contract, you know, one SRO with the Normandy Schools Collaborative, I believe at the new Lucas Crossing, I think it's changed to a full middle school, but same officer. There are some changes in the language that, you know, I think are more favorable to both parties probably that Andy had, but substantially the same contract.
Any concerns? Is there I'll read it by name. A resolution of the City of Normandy authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the Normandy School Collaborative to provide a school resource officer for the 23-24 school year. Is there a motion to adopt resolution 23-29?
Make a motion.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Last item on the agenda. Resolution 23-20, a resolution of the City of Normandy, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into an amended agreement with St. Louis County to provide housing for municipal inmates to the City of Normandy, Missouri. We've been in the same contract with the St. Louis County for probably 15 to 18 years, and now they're asking for a new contract. Their fee is going from $25 a day to house a prisoner to $50 a day to house a prisoner. Then it goes up to $100 a day next year. Now, they're the only show in town, so they have a monopoly. What I would recommend is agreeing to this contract. I do know that Chief and Major Larson are looking for some options. We don't have any yet, but the other answer to this is using, jailing people carefully. You don't just jail everybody, right? Because it is expensive. But like I say, right now, they're the only show in town. If we have to jail somebody, that's the only place we can take them. And if we have a serious situation, we'd like to be able to put them in jail. So, is there a motion to adopt resolution 23-30?
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. All right. We're through.
Quick question. 23, 30. Didn't we
Yes.
use St. Anne at one time?
Well, that, we used to, I believe, some time ago, but it was before '05.
Okay.
Yeah, it was '05, we entered into the contract with the county. So that's an option that's gonna be looked at.
Yeah, because I thought that for a while we went to St. Anne.
Well, and my understanding of the contract is they're not our exclusive provider. So, like you said, I think Chief Sanders and Major Larson are looking into the different options, and St. Anne and other options. And, you know, there's talk of, you know, could a co-op be created, because, you know, if we have someone here,
Well,
anyways,
Yeah,
we're not forced to use them.
yeah.
Right, but when we need them, it's there.
If we need them, that's what we're paying. We're paying. That doesn't mean we have to.
We don't pay them, there's no way.
We don't have a minimum number of prisoners we have to send to St. Louis County, right? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Great work, everyone.
That was good material.
Yeah.
I was
got through it pretty fast.
Yes, we did.
Right at the 2 hour mark.
Ma'am,
Yana, could I have a packet for Yolanda? I'll drop it off.
I mailed it out.
You mailed it out to her?
If she'd like a paper copy, I
Yeah.
can give her mine.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, I just,
yeah, there should be a paper copy.
Did you get one of
you need
these?
that,
Okay.
David, we'll get it to her.